Hi everyone, I'm Cerise.
I'm Joe.
And today we're talking about blame. Because it's all your fault.
It's not my fault, it's your fault.
You made me feel this way.
Every time I feel this way, it's because you do that, so it must be you. It's not me. You're making me feel that way.
You did it to me.
You're doing it to me.
You're a horrible person.
You.
I hate
you,
you.
not me. You.
I hate you.
You. And you. And you.
Okay. I think they get the picture now. Yeah. Blame makes you turn into a very aggressive monkey person.
Basically, that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah. It makes you very mean and loud. Sometimes you have loud thoughts. Did you know that you could have loud thoughts? That you're thinking about something so hard that if you were speaking it, you'd be like
shouting it.
Why did you do this to me? Okay, it's not. So blame. It's not cool, right? But we all do it. So what's behind it? What is it that we're trying to deflect from ourselves? Because, I mean, if you look at the nature of blame, what is it that you're doing? You're making other people and other things responsible for how you're living, how you're experiencing yourself, what you're doing in your life, and for just the general nature and things that are going on in your life. It's not your fault, it's someone else. It's been done to you, it's happening to you. You have absolutely no control, you have no power, you die.
It's kind of like every time that point comes up, the first thought is immediately, what made you feel that way? What in your world, or who in your world made you feel that way? Those experiences that come up where you feel victimized, where you feel powerless, where you feel like you've been wronged, where you feel like you don't have the tools or you don't know what to do, and you feel small and inferior. All of that kind of energy that comes up, immediately the first gut response tends to be to look at what caused it outside of yourself. When in fact, if you really trace it back, it always comes back to you. And whatever was happening in your world was only a symbol, a trigger, and it's showing you back to yourself. But instead of taking that back to ourselves and being self-honest and embracing it, we tend to blame what's on the outside, because then we get to keep experiencing that righteousness, that anger, that inferiority that we believe is real and that we believe is who we are.
So let's take a really obvious example. You made me angry. You deliberately did that even though you know how it makes me angry.
So at this point you're being spiteful. You're deliberately doing it to piss me off.
So you know what? I don't even know why I bother anymore.
And that's why I'm gonna cut you out of my life.
I don't even like you anymore.
That's why you're not worth the time.
You treat me. You just the whole time with the. Yeah.
That's why we just can't talk anymore, and I'm not gonna give you any more Christmas gifts. But you should still give me Christmas gifts because you're the one that's in the wrong.
Yeah.
If you stop giving me Christmas gifts, then you're just even more of a bad person.
So, in that example, the first question you need to ask yourself is, can anyone ever really make you feel anything? Can anyone influence the things that are going on inside of you?
At an emotional level. We're not talking about somebody physically reaching into you and manipulating you from the inside like some kind of parasitical alien worm thing. Or
like alien probes that are implanted in your rectum that travel up to your brain and influence your behavior.
It roots itself into your cerebellum and starts to change the way your brain releases chemicals. Then you could say, yeah, that thing, that made me feel this way because it really actually did. And you should get help, like immediately get that thing out of you.
Mm-hmm. Try not to die in the process.
Yeah.
That would also be bad.
And don't try to remove it yourself.
Yeah.
Either like
Usually ends in
probably
tragedy.
get somebody that
Doctor
or
would
a
be
butcher
good.
also might work if you're in a pinch.
No, that wouldn't work. So, can anyone make you feel anything? Really? Now, I don't want your surface answer. I don't want the one that immediately comes up. Oh, yeah, sure, totally. No, not that one. Take a moment and really look at it.
What happens just before you make that statement? They made me feel this way, or you make me feel this way. What comes up is you and your experience in yourself alone, from you. And that's where it comes from.
So that experience has always been inside of you. Ever since it was, or rather ever since you created it within yourself. Maybe an event happened in your childhood that created a specific kind of anger. And every time that you're in a certain kind of situation, that anger is triggered.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that a person or a situation has put it in you. It's already there. It's just being brought out of you by a specific event, by specific words, by a specific experience.
And that's something to consider too, is that these experiences oftentimes from our past, from our childhood, they don't just disappear because we apparently stop feeling them. They stay with us, and perhaps dormant, and they keep on getting triggered and triggered and triggered throughout our lives. And a common mistake people can make is to believe that just because we experience it, because someone else triggered it, that means this other person must be the source, when in fact it is still you.
Something that's been inside of you for however long, that is in real current time being activated.
Yeah.
And what tends to happen is the kind of compound interest type of principle, where over time, as more and more events happen in the same kind of categories, the same type of events, it builds onto the emotional experiences attached to that. So what started off as being a little bit of anger as a child, as things happen in your life and you don't deal with that anger and more things build onto it, it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger until you get to a point where something happens that triggers that anger and it's like an explosion.
And you're immediately in it. Like there's no fuse to it at all. You're just bam, immediate blame, and you're already defending yourself as though you're back in that original moment. And I remember for myself, there are very specific memories from my past where I allowed myself to go into that point of inferiority, fear, feeling like I'm not in control, feeling like I'm being left out, and all of these things that throughout the years compound, become greater and greater. And as similar things later on would happen in my life, it was very easy to say, oh, those things made me feel that way. I always feel that way when those things happen. So I have to just make sure those things never happen again. And when those things happen, then I need to lash out and get it out of my life so I don't then have to feel this way anymore.
So what are the consequences of blame? Aside from all of this nasty shit that we've played out for you, blame creates conflict, but not just conflict with the person who you're blaming. It creates an inner conflict because deep down inside of you, you know that this was already a part of you, this thing that's coming up inside of you. You know you're responsible. But on the surface, you're trying to convince yourself that you're not responsible, that someone or something else is responsible. So it's like this clash of your true self and your surface conscious mind.
Your self-defenses. And it's interesting, it's kind of like your ways of defending yourself from having to take responsibility, having to, in many ways, put yourself back into that moment, that original moment where you first accepted that part of yourself, that weakness, that inferiority, that anger, whatever it was. Many times the challenge is being willing to go back to that point and stand where you didn't stand before. And unfortunately, when that doesn't happen, you end up becoming the very monster that you are accusing other people of being. For example, if you are feeling like somebody in your life is being rigid, cold, being nasty to you, what do you actually end up doing? You start becoming that very thing. You start isolating. You start becoming cold. You start withdrawing. And you start projecting and blaming this person for apparently how they're making you feel while you're doing the exact thing that you're accusing them of. And that's a very nasty side of blame.
What the biggest part of blame that manifests in the consequences that through giving your responsibility away to things and people around you, you disempower yourself. You actively victimize yourself. So you remove your capacity and your ability to act on whatever it is that you're going through, whether it's inside of you or in your life around you, because you're telling yourself, you're convincing yourself that you're powerless, that it's being done to you. There's nothing you can do about it. You just have to live through it, survive it somehow.
It's like that game, Quit Hitting Yourself, you know. It's like you are actually the one hitting yourself, but then you're blaming yourself for being so strong. And it's this weird kind of conflict that builds when we go into that point of blame, where we even blame ourselves. And have a look at that. What does it require for you to be less than yourself? Can you actually be less than yourself? No, the answer is no, you can't.
Oh, that's not where I was going.
You'd be surprised.
So the final point that I'd like to make with the consequences of blame is that, as Joe started, in terms of you become the monster, is you become a hypocrite. You become contradictory, because it starts off with you doing something, you having something within you that's activated by someone else that you blame them for. But the more you blame them, the more you become it. And the more you become what you're blaming them for. And it's like you're saying, you're such a terrible person for doing that. But then you're actually doing the same thing. You become this contradictory, split self where you see yourself as being the victim and innocent, and everything outside of you being the horrible, bad monsters.
Yeah.
But the truth of it is that you're doing exactly that you're accusing others of doing to you.
Yeah, and then the moment someone else reacts or starts to take the bait that you're laying out, then you get all righteous. See, you are being that after I was a total jerk to you. That's not the point. So how do we support ourselves to not go into that, not create this kind of conflict? Because it's not pretty, and it's unfortunate when you have to, in many ways, compromise a lot of relationships because of points like these. So one thing you can do is to start flagging the point. And flagging the point is basically when you start noticing yourself begin to shift into that point of blame, and you feel the energy coming up, and the first words that want to come out of your mouth are, you did this, or they made me feel, or anything where it's that kind of projection, that's a flag point. And at that point, that's your first opportunity to stop and make a different decision.
I would suggest even to break it down further, because a lot of the time when you're in that experience, you have absolutely no interest in stopping. So the first point is that you need to decide if you're willing to follow through on your commitment to stop those experiences, and remind yourself at every moment to be humble enough to recognize when you are accessing that particular experience. Have specific words mapped out for yourself that you know when you access that blame, you are more likely to be using these specific words. Them, their, happened to me, done to me.
You is a key one as well.
I can't help it. All these words that embody your self-victimization and that embody this shift of responsibility onto something or someone else. Flag those words for yourself so that you know if you are thinking or speaking those words, you immediately stop and look at, what am I doing? What is going on in this moment? Am I clear, or have I slipped into an emotional experience and I'm now trying to make other people responsible for what I am feeling or for what has happened?
We all know what happens if you follow that train and let it play out. It's not pretty. So rather stop that Don't create that for yourself. You know exactly what that feels like, and it's not a good feeling. Especially when you know that you're the one that created it, and you're the one that was the monster. So stop aping around. Stop, you, not me, you. Don't do that. It looks ridiculous. I mean, do you really want that? Because I'll show you what that looks like. The consequences of that.
No. If you like our videos, remember to share